All right, we're on the record this morning in Commonwealth of Kentucky versus Shelby L. Shell, Harlan Circuit Court number 13 CR 00076. And before we bring the jury in, is there any preliminary matters we need to discuss?
No, sir.
All right. Anything you can think of?
No, Your Honor, we have a subpoena for a state prisoner, and we'll submit that subpoena with a transport order at some point during the day. I just wanted the court to be aware, maybe during a break or...
I signed a transport order this morning. I don't know who it came from.
We sent it, but I was supposed to bring a physical copy. So.
No, it wasn't for that.
Huh?
Was it for?
Oh, who was it for? Weedman?
Murder David Weedman.
Yeah. We filed that this morning.
I filed it this morning.
Just want to make sure that was done. Thank you.
All right, then, television, WYMT. You know, you understand the rules about not videoing the jury, keeping the camera, otherwise away from them, and not moving around, and so forth and so on. You're aware of all that. I've had WYMT in court before, and you do a fine job with it. Okay. So with that in mind, I guess we need to bring the jury on in now, get them seated this morning, and get going. All right. Okay, this is a witness. This isn't the jury, but they're coming in behind it. All rise to the jury, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, come on in.
Judge, I'm going to see them numerically according to this chart. 88, I'll be back in the first row over. 106, and this will be the seat you'll keep all the time you're in here, okay? 233. 233. 240. 240, okay. 274. 283. 354. 366, 510, 548, 596, 612, 812, and 845. All right, now I'm going to give you all a notepad. All right, and on the inside,
Be seated.
when you get it, don't put your name on that up here on the hard copy. Just write your number, your number right there, okay, in the corner. And that way, when you get through, you're not allowed to take it out, but just leave it in your seat, okay? And when so put it back in your seat before you leave, all right? If you'll pass those around. There you go. Kobe will pass your pen around. Kobe will pass them some pens. I'm going to pass this. This will be a juror badge, and you can wear that out if you go out to lunch, and when you go places while you're, in the evenings when you leave, you do everything in your seat, okay? All right. Pass that. door, do not take this out of the courtroom, leave your books in your seats, and with your badge in the easel when you leave. Or at lunch, you take them out. Try to stay, remember your seat, stay in the same seat. Remember to do that, okay? All right, thank you very much. There you go.
All right. All right, folks, I hope you all had a good, relaxing weekend leading up to today. Do any of you have anything to report to me? Has anyone approached you or tried to talk to you or anything like that about this case? All right, everyone's shaking their heads no. Again, always when you go out, when we take breaks, and we will be taking breaks, and you're outside, or please don't talk to anyone about any. The odd thing is they require us to give you these juror badges to put on, and that just draws people like flies to want to talk to you about what you're doing. So it doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes, but please don't. And don't talk among yourselves about anything you about the trial or anything you hear in terms of evidence and so forth, because it's premature. You make up your minds when you get the case and you deliberate. So don't form any opinions about it or talk among yourselves about it. Otherwise, again, with regard to the notepads, leave them in your seats always. Don't take them outside. Ultimately, you'll decide this case on your memory of what you hear in evidence. Now, what we're going to begin with today, first of all, I want to remind you of something I said when we first met last week. The defendant, Mr. Shell, is presumed innocent as a matter of law, and the Commonwealth of Kentucky has the burden of proof of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Shell may or may not testify. That's up to him, but you're drawing no adverse inference from that if he does not testify. That's his constitutional right not to testify. Let's see, what else do we need to do? What we're going to start with this morning is opening arguments, but I want to bring something else to your attention by way of just education. You're to consider this case based on evidence, and evidence is what you'll hear under oath from witnesses testifying, or from exhibits introduced, or sometimes they're just demonstrative exhibits that aren't introduced, but the exhibits that are introduced will be evidence. You'll be allowed to take them back to the jury room with you. That's evidence. We're going to start with opening statements. Comments of counsel, the lawyers, are not evidence. The opening statements will be what they intend to prove to you, or through their witnesses. Closing arguments is their take on what the evidence proves, but it is not evidence. So just bear that in mind. Counsel always approach when you want, if you have an objection, you need to stand and you'll be recognized. Now, as far as breaks are concerned, I want to, we'll take breaks, restroom breaks and all that. Do any of you smoke? Well, that's good. That's refreshing. That's good. I quit a long time ago and I feel a lot better about it. But we will take restroom breaks. If you need to, just raise your pad and the bailiff will see you and to bring to my attention. And we don't want you to be uncomfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable. And don't be embarrassed about just signaling to the bailiff, because you're probably signaling for half the courtroom by then. So we want to make you comfortable. We don't want any. We want your concentration on the evidence and not on other things. All right. So I think that covers everything I need to address. As a preliminary matter, is the Commonwealth ready with its opening statement?
We are, Your Honor.
All right. Proceed, Mr. Boggs. Oh, by the way, this is Jonathan Lee, the Assistant Commonwealth Attorney. You didn't get to meet him last week, but he'll be participating.
Thank you. I was going to introduce Mr. Lee,
All right.
who was ill last week, and Mr. Luttrell, who's also with our office, who's the Commonwealth Detective, is here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you being here today. As the judge said, opening statements or statements made by the attorney are not evidence. What you hear from the witness stand, what you hear is evidence. When Detective Cornett testifies, he was the detective in this case, he will be presenting evidence from his testimony. But this is the time that the Commonwealth gets to tell you what we believe the evidence will be presented to you, to give you some idea of the case. As the judge told you the first day you were here when he read the indictment, this is a murder case. It's a murder case. It's just not a killing. It's a bad killing. And I apologize for what we're going to have to show you during this evidence, right up front. It's a bad killing. Ronnie King did not need to die the way he died. No one should die the way Ronnie King died. He was a well-respected man in his community. He had a family that lived around him. He had worked for 19 years as a housing manager for Eastbrook, it's a housing project. He had worked there for 19 years. He was not married, had no children. He was 59 years old when he died. 59 years old when he was murdered. He liked to collect things. He collected coins, pennies, wheat pennies. You'll hear about wheat pennies in a jar. He traded guns and knives, and he had money that he collected and he saved. He had previously been broken into when he wasn't home, and they stole a lot of things. His nephew will tell you they stole a lot of things from him, things that they could carry off. But see, Ronnie King had things in safes, big gun safes, 2 of them, that you couldn't get into if you didn't know how to get into it or have the key or the combination. So, February 17, that's a Sunday night, the last person who talked to Ronnie King that's going to testify to you that we know of was his sister, Jerry Mulkey. She will tell you that as she talked to Mr. King, he said, Kevin's up on the porch. Kevin's at the door, going to get off. Got off. It's Sunday night, it's after dark. That's the last she heard from him. Now, then you'll hear evidence that throughout that night, there was somebody else there. It wasn't Kevin. You'll hear evidence of someone who said, I heard him say, Kevin's at the door, and I knew I could get in. And so, you'll hear that testimony. Then Ronnie King died this way. It was a bad killing, and it was sloppy. It wasn't well thought out of, well thought. It was time consuming. Because, you know, again, if you're robbing somebody and you're trying to get into their safe, they have to be able to participate in that somehow. So Ronnie King, you'll see photos, you'll hear evidence from the detective and from the coroner and from the medical examiner who examined his body when it was taken to Frankfurt, that he had a belt wrapped around the arm. And he had a piece of a belt. He had a piece of zip ties. You'll see photos of zip tie in the floor. There was a zip tied, then all of that was duct taped. His hands were duct taped. His underwear was pulled down. It was sloppy. His duct tape was taped around the underwear. His face and nose and mouth duct taped. As much as 5 times around, but from his glasses were still on. So his glasses were on, the duct tape covered his nose, mouth, and down to his chin. Zip ties, belt, duct tape, all of that. And then he's robbed, safes are open, and he has a pillow put across his face. He's lying on the floor, and he's shot. Right where his glasses go across his ear, in the head. And he's killed. But hopefully, he died quickly then. Because then there was fire. There was an attempt to burn the duct tape or burn the evidence or burn fingerprints. So he's doused in something and he's burned, and his shirt's burned off, his whatever. He's burned down to his feet. His socks have melted on his feet where the duct tape and the underwear was all tucked around. There's other places in the house where the fire was started. But you know, like I say, not well planned, not well thought out. House didn't burn. So Ronnie King didn't burn. He was burned. His clothes were burned. He was singed. His hair was singed. The blood was burned. But you know where this duct tape was on the skin, it didn't burn. The duct tape that was on the face didn't burn, or around his feet. But there was stuff that did burn. The sofa in another room, the couch in another room, had it burned, and it fell through the floor because it was up high above the flood level. It burned through the floor. But the fire marshal will tell you there's several places fire was started. Of course, it was started all over the body, but it didn't burn. Not a good plan to hide all the evidence. So there's evidence still there. So we ask for your patience, and we appreciate this ordeal that we're going to go through in the next few days. And we hope that you can come to the same conclusion that Detective Cornett came to, and others in the Commonwealth, that we will have enough evidence to show you that that this man here, Shelby, robbed and murdered Ronnie King. The evidence is there. See, Shelby knew Ronnie King. Shelby told WYMT that Ronnie King had loaned him money to get married just recently. He knew him. His family's from Harlan. They knew everybody in that little community of Everts. If you haven't been there, it's a small town in Harlan County. And Ronnie King, the deceased, he was one-time mayor of Everts. He lived right across from the funeral home, right in town. You'll see pictures of his home. And Shelby knew him. Shelby knew him. And Shelby robbed him, killed him, and tried to burn his body. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Boggs. The defense, who will open for the defense? Ms. Karen?
I'm here to be the voice of Shelby Shell. We talked a little bit about how somebody might want to speak to you, might not feel capable. I'm his attorney and I'm the voice for Shelby Shell today. It's been a long time coming and it was a horrible crime, but Shelby Shell didn't do it. 6 years of wondering, 6 years to wait, 6 years of worry, 6 years to investigate. And we'll be talking about what we know now. And it's going to be a little bit different than what we knew immediately after Mr. King's body was found. One of the things that you may hear is that Shelby Shell's own brother says that he confessed. But did he really understand what he was saying? Did he understand what he was saying? Because Shelby Shell was the special education kid, the throwaway child. You will hear from experts and you will hear from other witnesses about his intellectual disability. The terminology may change during the course of the testimony. We used to use the words mentally retarded. We used to use the word slow. The current language is intellectual disability, so we'll try to use that terminology during the case. You will hear about Shelby Shell's lack of schooling. You will hear about how his intellectual disability played into his gullibility and his need to please other people. You will wonder if Shelby Shell is the one person stupid enough to admit to an unsolved murder. You will wonder why KSP relied on a special education person's tall tale to close their case. You will wonder where in this story things don't match up to the evidence. You'll wonder what he got wrong. And I'm not here to tell you the story of how the government thinks this crime occurred. I am here to warn you about some of the things that you will hear and you will see, which Mr. Boggs discussed a little bit. You will likely see a video from the Everett's funeral home across the street from Mr. King's house. We tend to think of video as pretty good evidence in a case. It will show you the outside of the home and some of the response to the reported arson. You will get to review medical examiner's findings. And you may get to do that today, and I want you to pay a lot of attention to the medical examiner's findings. You will see autopsy photos. Some of those are difficult to look at. And crime scene photos and phone records. You will see all of that evidence during the course of this trial. But you won't hear about a murder weapon. You won't hear about DNA matching a suspect or matching Shelby Shell. You won't hear about fingerprints being matched to any suspects, let alone Shelby Shell. You won't hear about touch DNA. You won't hear about fibers or ballistics. You won't hear about fingerprints or footprints. You'll wonder what else is out there. Telling the side of the story for Shelby Shell, being his voice, I want you to keep an open mind. You're going to hear from the government first. I want you to keep an open mind because there are witnesses who may testify to details that could be considered salacious. Men having sex with other men, sometimes for money. There are witnesses who may testify to drug trafficking. There are witnesses who may testify to impersonating law enforcement. There are witnesses who may testify to having a previous felony, so there may be convicted felon witnesses. The government is going to give a presentation, and there are some holes, and we don't have to fill them. Shelby Shell is innocent, sitting in that chair right now. And at the end of this case, you will find that the government is not able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Shelby Shell committed this murder. Yes, a murder was committed. Yes, there was an arson. It was a horrible crime. But Shelby Shell didn't do it. And because I think if you keep an open mind and you wait and you wonder and you let yourself worry over the evidence, carefully assess the evidence, see what is actually being investigated, then at the end of this trial you will find Shelby Shell not guilty.
All right, thank you, Ms. Karam. All right, thank you, Ms. Karam. So at this point, we should be ready to proceed with the Commonwealth's case in chief.
Correct.
Witness. Yes, sir, Mr. Lee.
Your Honor, we call Mike Cornett to the stand.
All right. Mike Cornett. Sir, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you give to us today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right. Have a seat here in the witness stand. Speak up loudly and clearly. Do any of you have any problems hearing? If you do this, we have some earphones over here. I use them occasionally myself, just so that the Harlan Circuit Courtroom's acoustics are not nearly this good, though. So anyway, all right, Mr. Cornett.
Your Honor, if it
Mr. Lee?
pleases the court, I'm not familiar with the trial procedure in Bell County concerning attorney placement. I know that the podium is over here. Where would we, what's a good, and I hate to ask you this, I saw the podium here and thought that's where I was going to be.
You can get it back if you need it.
I've got the paperwork.
Would you like to have it back? That would be fine.
Yeah,
And
the
then
issue
they
is,
pick
Judge,
me up
when
on
you
the
stand
record.
there, the microphones might not pick you up, and I've had occasions where I stood there without the podium, I was not on the record.
So they need to
That
make
might
sure
be
I'm
better.
back.
Just bring it on over, both if you would, and we'll let them, council can use the podium, and we need to hook the mic up so to be sure to get everybody on the record.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Let's see. Okay, that's one reason we moved the podium, because I can't see.
Yeah, can the defendant see the witness?
Yes.
I can. That's a good placement.
That's the critical thing. So long as the defendant can see the witness, that's the critical thing. All right. Is his microphone working?
Yeah, I think the light does not come on.
The witness is, all right.
It distracts, but it is
All right.
working.
All right. All right, Mr. Lee, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. We seem to have gotten things straight now. We're getting the Harlan County folks here in Bell County, so we got to work it out. But sir, I'm going to go ahead and ask you some questions. Could you please introduce yourself briefly to the jury and to the court?
I'm retired Master Trooper Michael Cornett, signed the Post 10 in Harlan, served 24 years as a trooper and a detective in Harlan County.
Okay. Now, you noted that you're retired presently. I'm going to take you back to February of 2013. Were you retired from the Kentucky State Police at that time?
No, sir, I was not. I was a general investigative detective assigned to Harlan County.
Okay. And specifically, February 17th and February 18th of 2013, did you retain those duties that you just described?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you recall working on those dates, February 17th, February 18th, 2013?
I remember working on the 18th because that's the day I received the call.
Okay. So 17th you did not work,
I
correct?
don't recall if I worked or not, sir.
Okay, all right. But your involvement with this case, when did that occur?
I initially got the call, or State Police got the call about 10:54 a.m. on February the 18th, 2013. I received a call of a house fire at 148 Kelly Street in the city of Everett, which is located in Harlan County, Kentucky.
Okay. When you state the state police received that call, were you on duty at that time? Were you called out? You recall?
I was on duty.
Okay. So were you immediately notified of the complaint?
Not immediately. A couple uniformed troopers responded to the scene at first.
Okay.
And then when they discovered what they discovered, I was notified.
Okay, so at a certain point, then your presence is requested at the location described. That was 148 Kelly Street in Everett, Kentucky.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so did you travel there?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what did you visually see when you arrive on that scene?
When I arrived on the scene, there were some troopers there, several EMS and fire personnel on the scene. The house is a two-story dwelling with a basement above ground that's raised to be out of the floodplain. The house is brick-sided with a shingled roof. There's a carport on the side of the house as I approached with a red pickup truck parked underneath. Get out of the car, have one of the troopers at the scene to start a crime log so we can document who comes and goes onto the crime scene, the time they arrive, the time they leave.
Let me ask you a couple of questions there about that. So, generally speaking, and we're going back to not presently, but on or around February 18, 2013, was it customary for a detective, as you were, to be called to every crime scene?
Not every crime scene, just whatever a supervisor deemed necessary for a detective.
Okay. When you arrive on scene, you just testified that you began to tell the troopers that were there a few things, and what you specifically stated was, I believe, an evidence log. Is that correct?
Crime scene log.
Crime scene log. Okay. Now, you informing the troopers to do that, are you taking over the scene at that point in time? I mean,
Yes, sir.
Okay. So were you the senior investigator on the scene at this point in time?
Yes, sir.
As soon as you arrived?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you describe the protocol in terms of what does that mean? You're the senior investigator, you're the detective that arrives on scene. What does that mean?
That means I'll be the investigating officer. I'll, whatever I deem necessary, or I'll give each trooper or detective, whoever is sent to assist me, duties to do, whether it's talk to witnesses or take photographs, just any array of things.
Okay. And the first thing you did was a crime scene log. You informed them to start a crime scene log.
Yes, sir.
Can you inform me and the jury what is a crime scene log?
It's just a log on a piece of paper. Tells the person who we mark off the crime scene, anyone who comes inside the barrier that we've placed up. Usually it's this piece of yellow tape y'all have seen on TV. And I have an officer standing there, and whoever comes in, they will document who comes in and the time that they come in.
Okay. All right, so take us back out to the outside of the location there in Everett, Kentucky. And you've already stated, I'm asking you this, was that Harlan County, Kentucky?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. Take us back to the outside of that scene. You've arrived, you've informed someone to do the crime scene log. What are you seeing outside?
There's a lot of people standing across the street from the residence. Had been fire trucks there when I arrived. It's a small town, so as in any small town in southeast Kentucky, when they see a fire truck or a rescue squad or a police car go by, if they hear the siren stop nearby, everybody comes and looks to see what's going on. So that's the reason for the crime scene barrier, the tape to keep everybody out. I take photographs outside the house. The troopers on the scene had informed me what was inside, what the fire department had discovered. I go into the residence. When you go into the residence, you enter it through the main entrance. You come into the living room. If you look to your left, the first room is a room with a safe and a computer table, which I refer to as a safe room. The next room down is a bedroom. Directly across from the entrance is the bathroom and laundry room. The kitchen, dining room, and living room is all one room, with the kitchen part, if I recall correctly, is kind of in an L shape to the left at the back entrance.
Okay, so let's go back. You've taken us inside now from your memory. I would like to just for a little bit take you back outside. Do you recall being outside of this location on that day? What was it like outside? Was it, you know, the time you stated the time, but I'm going to ask you, was it daylight? Did you smell anything? You stated you noticed various vehicles there. Describe in a bit detail what your senses were picking up that you can recall. At
If
that
I
time.
remember correctly, it was a bright, sunshiny morning. I could smell smoke from the fire call that the Everett's Fire Department had received. Some of the family was at his sister's house, which is, if you're looking at the front of the house, be to the left just before you get to the residence on Kelly Street. I don't remember it rain. It wasn't raining or anything that day.
Okay. You said you smelled smoke. Could you see smoke still from the house?
No, sir, I don't recall seeing any smoke at the time. I noticed that the windows of the residence were blackened.
Okay, okay. All right, so you've previously taken us in and given us a description of sort of the layout of the house. Can you continue with that and in detail describe what you see and perceive as you're coming into this house at 148 Kelly Street?
As you enter the living room, slightly to the left of center, there's a hole that appears to have been burnt through the floor. I think a rough estimate was 2 to 3 foot wide, 6 foot long. I looked down in the hole in the basement, in the above ground basement. There lies directly beneath the hole what appears to be a metal frame for a recliner. The walls are blackened. I think maybe the clock on the wall had been melted, partially deformed. As you go into the safe room, I noticed there's a dead white male, deceased white male, lying on his back with his feet bound with duct tape, his underwear down around his ankles, hands duct tape in front, kind of like maybe a praying stance. Just his arms were bent. There was duct tape around his face from his chin to the bridge of his nose. There had been a fire in that room, it appeared to me. The victim appeared to have had some kind of wound to the right side of his head. There were 2 pillows. One, his head was lying on the pillow. The second was kind of off, discarded to the left of the victim.
Okay, so let me stop you right there because that's a lot of information. And I'm going to ask you some questions about that. But I first want to go back. You were describing the inside of the residence, and you state that there's a hole in the floor, and then you look down and you see what appears to be the metal frame of a chair. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
So what your perception alone, you know, you're standing there, you're seeing this. What did that make you think? What are you trying to say about that chair?
Just from my working through the years, the chair had been set on fire, and with it burning through the fire or through the floor, I assumed that was the hottest point at the time. But I could not see in the room where the fire had trailed through other parts of the residence.
So was it your belief then that the chair had previously been up on the floor that you were standing on, and then you're looking through a hole at the chair, and you believe that chair had previously been up on the second floor that you're on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it fallen through the floor.
Yes.
Okay, so you've taken us to the point then that you've seen a body lying there. At this point in time, did you know who that individual was?
I did not personally know the deceased. Some of the fire personnel who live in Everett knew him, stated it was the victim, Ronnie King. This was his residence we were at. The fire personnel told me that that's who it was.
Okay. So, before we get into that room where you're seeing this body that you've already described with some detail, anything else about the periphery of the house that you have noticed to this point, or did you go straight in towards where the body was lying?
Initially went in straight to where the body was lying.
Okay.
Made notes, documentation, photographs of what I saw. And then after I finished with that room, I go to the next room, see what I can find there. Doing basically trying to detail the scene as I saw it.
Okay. Let's talk about what you noticed with the body. Okay. You first stated that it was on the ground. Is that correct?
Yes,
On the
laying on the
floor?
floor, face
Okay.
up.
Face up. Okay. What room was this in?
Is that what I call the safe room? The first room to the left off of the living room.
Okay. And why did you refer to it as a safe room?
There is a Winchester brand large gun safe there. The door was open. The safe was empty. There was a chair that was partially burnt, on the floor, standing upright next to the floor. Next to the victim. If I'm not mistaken, I think there was another chair with arms, like at a computer table chair. It had a metal, looks like a metal cash box. It was opened and there was no cash in it. Some of the filing cabinet drawers were open. As far as the victim himself, like I said, his ankles were duct taped. I did note that it appeared that the duct tape had been burnt from the bottom, as opposed to if you was trying to set something on fire. If you use an accelerator or something, you pour it and light it from the top. This was burned from the bottom on near his ankles and his heels. The hands were tied with I think a brown belt, duct tape, and zip ties. I noticed zip ties broken on the floor. And he had I think a plaid shirt on that was unbuttoned and a white t-shirt. And the shirt appeared to have been melted to his skin.
From your perception standing there, when you initially come in, did it appear that the body had suffered any type, just you visually, layperson looking at this body on the ground, did it appear that there were any burns to the body?
I really can't recall that. I know that the ankles.
Okay.
That,
we'll get into the pictures here in a little bit, okay? So let me ask you this then, moving on to a different topic. Let's talk about, you stated duct tape, correct? Can you tell me, because I can't remember all that you've said thus far, could you please tell me in all the locations of the body that you recall seeing duct tape on the deceased individual?
Around the ankles, around the wrist, hands, and around the face from below the chin to the bridge of the nose, covering both up the airways of the mouth and the nose.
Okay. So sometimes when I'm standing here talking to you, I have to ask questions that maybe in the abstract might seem foolish, and you might know the answer, or think that I should or would know the answer, but I still have to ask some of these questions. So the first one I'm going to ask you is when taken collectively, the entire thing, duct tape on the feet, duct tape on the hands, duct tape around the mouth and nose area you stated, did it appear that the victim could have done that himself?
No.
Okay. Is that something you have to pay attention to when you walk into a crime scene and someone there's a deceased person there, whether or not it's self-inflicted, so to speak?
Yes. I you can see where someone could duct tape their ankles and their face, but they couldn't duct tape their own hands in the manner that this was. It was bound tightly. It appears first was zip ties were used, and then possibly a brown leather belt, and then the duct tape.
Okay, so you listed 3 different types of instruments, for lack of a better word, that could be utilized, in theory at least, to restrain someone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Brown belt, you said, zip ties, and duct tape, correct?
Yes, sir.
The duct tape, let's stay there for a moment. Can you describe the placement of the hands? How were the hands together? Were they not? Describe in detail what you recall about how the hands were duct taped.
If I remember correctly, the hands were zip tied and duct tape, kind of like this, wrists together. I can't recall if the hands were clasped or not, but I do remember the hands being close together. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it may have been the right arm was in front of the left, but I'm not 100% positive on that. But then the zip ties and the belt.
Okay. Now, moving on to the head, the duct tape on the head. You briefly mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to ask you this question just straightforward. With the manner that you observed the duct tape around the victim's head, you stated nose and mouth, do you believe, just in your observations and understanding as a person, do you believe that that would have made things difficult to breathe?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you talked about zip ties, and you said, I believe your statement was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that you stated it appeared that zip ties had been used or attempted to be used.
Yes, sir.
What makes you think that?
At the time, I saw some that had been broken, discarded near the body, the victim. At the time that I was there, I did not remove the bindings from the victim itself. I left that for the medical examiner to do. So I made a note of that and didn't make no big deal. I didn't tell the supervisor or anything like that about seeing the broken zip ties.
Okay. All right, let's move then to the belt. Can you recall the belt? Describe to us, where was it located? What position was it in?
I think it was a brown leather belt, kind of a weave design, maybe 3 or 4 strands of leather woven together. It was wrapped around the hands. I can't remember which direction, if it's left to right or right to left.
Okay. So what you just testified to, though, is that it appeared to you that 3 different ways or means of restraining someone had been applied to this body. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you do not believe that was self-inflicted? It was not done by the victim? Is that correct?
No, sir, I do not.
Do you believe that such a situation, one finds oneself on the floor with duct tape around the feet, duct tape around the hands, duct tape around the face and the nose and mouth, zip ties, and a leather belt? Did that appear to you to be accidental?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you believe that was purposeful, the intent to restrain by whatever, whomever? Did it appear to you that that person was placed in that situation, in that manner, restrained as you described, purposefully?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Tell us then a little bit about the description of what you noticed around the body, and I'll give you one question that may lead you down to talk about some other things, and I'll state, did you see any blood?
Yes, there was blood near the victim's head.
Okay. Can you describe that and what you saw?
It was a rather large pool of blood. The pillow had soaked up most of the blood, or a lot of the blood. I won't say most, a lot.
So where was the pillow?
It was underneath the victim's head, and the victim's head was pointed towards Kelly Street, the front street.
Okay. So the victim's lying on the ground, and there's a pillow underneath the head?
Yes, sir.
And the body is restrained?
Yes,
And then there's a pool of blood underneath the pillow.
yes.
Okay. Was the blood contained to the pillow or had it spread around the body?
No, it's spread around near the victim's head.
Okay. Was the victim wearing anything on the head, aside from duct tape?
His glasses, he had his eyeglasses on. They was askew. They were not in their natural position. Anybody wears glasses, you wear them one way, that's the way they're comfortable, that's the way you wear them. This does not appear to be natural. One side of the glasses was raised above the ear, and the lens was partially above the eye, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Now, you've talked about blood, you've talked about restraint, but earlier in your testimony you had said something concerning actual wounds. Did you observe, as you're standing there taking this scene in, did you observe what you thought were wounds anywhere on this victim's body?
Yes, I observed a wound to the victim's head. It appeared to be a gunshot wound. The pillow lying to the side of the victim had a hole with what appeared to be black soot around the hole. This indicated to me that a firearm had been discharged through the pillow.
Okay. Through the pillow?
Yes,
Okay. So, how many pillows were in this room?
2.
2. And can you once more state their location?
One was under the head of the victim, and one was to the side of the victim. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's the left side, but I'm not sure.
Okay. And which pillow did you observe what you just described, the hole in the soot?
The pillow laying to the side of the victim. I collected that pillow and
Okay.
kept it as evidence.
Okay. So the pillow laying beside of the victim appeared, as you've described, to have soot and a hole in it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what did that make you think? What was your observation of that when coupled with what you're seeing in front of you at that point in time?
That someone had shot through the pillow in an attempt to mask the sound of the firearm being discharged.
Okay. All right. So at this point in time, the coroner was not on scene. Is that correct?
No, sir. He arrived shortly thereafter.
Okay. Who requested his presence?
I'm not sure who initially requested, but I always make sure that the coroner has been notified.
Okay. Why is that important? What's the coroner do?
It's required by law. First, that I am in charge of the crime scene, or the investigating officer is, but the coroner is in charge of the victim. The deceased victim, the body is the coroner's, for lack of a better bailiwick. That's his area.
Okay. Okay. Who pronounces the victim, the body? Who pronounces that dead? Do you have knowledge of that?
The coroner does.
The coroner does. Okay. So until, and I'm asking you a question here, until the coroner pronounces the body dead, can you initiate a murder investigation?
But initially, it's a death investigation
Okay.
until the coroner or the medical examiner determines the nature and the cause of death.
Okay. So at the point in time when you're standing there and you're making these observations, which you've been describing to the jury about the house and about the body, what type of investigation is that at this point in time?
It's a death investigation leaning towards a murder investigation.
Okay. Why leaning towards murder?
Just from the victim being bound, the house being on fire or set on fire, what appears to be a gunshot wound to the head. With his hands bound, it could not have been self-inflicted, in my opinion. So at that point in time, I'm leaning towards a murder investigation.
Okay. At that point in time, you're still on the scene. You're looking at this body. You've stated that you're leaning towards a murder investigation. Do you have any suspects at this point in time?
I had the troopers and some more detectives do a neighborhood canvass. that's where we send troopers and detectives out, talk to neighbors, and see if any of them seen or heard anything, talk to family members, see if they know anything.
Prior to that, though, prior to the canvas, the neighborhood canvas, when you're still inside, did you have a suspect at that time?
No.
Okay. Is there anything else concerning, right now we're just talking about your perception, your description of the scene at 148 Kelly Street, Everett, Kentucky on February 18th, 2013. Is there anything else concerning the scene at this point in time that you want to talk about?
In the bedroom, which is adjacent to the safe room, I discover a strong box. It's open. The keys are on the bed. Appears to be a fire set in there because there was a pants rack with some polyester pants, and the polyester pants were melted to the clothes rack, but there was no fire trail going into that room. So that kind of indicated to me there was a second or a third fire, because you had the fire in the living room, no trail going into the safe room, there's a fire in there, and there's no trail going into the bedroom, and there's a fire in there. So there, in my experience from investigating crimes, it appears to have at least been 3 fires, but I contacted a state police arson investigator who was coming to the scene to assist me as far as the arson investigation goes.
Okay. Just briefly, what is arson?
It's a burning of a structure, a dwelling, a building, intentionally.
Okay, so at this point in time, based upon your observations then, did it appear to you that the fires that you've been talking about at various times throughout your testimony, did it appear to you that they had been intentionally set?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes, ma'am.